What if Diana's statement was false? For many years, we all agreed with the official Princess Diana's passing was a sad incident involving a high-speed collision in a paparazzi are chasing the Paris tunnel, but death was only the start of a lengthy. A more sinister reality is that the royal family never wished to inform you that in this video, we will explain the reason behind Prince Harry's quest for his whole family has been placed in a hazard and disclose the true cause of the coffin of Princess Diana was never opened. At her burial, as soon as the news announced Diana's passing on August 31, 1997, many were aware that something was amiss. According to eyewitnesses, there were bursts of brightness just before the crash. According to some, the Mercedes she was driving didn't appear to be moving as quickly as others said that there was another car involved with anything that was never formally recognized. However, in spite of these assertions, the royal family wasted no time in investigation, closed this case, and began in mourning at Diana's passing. The coffin was closed quite instantly, and no, except for a relatively small number of people, recovered Diana's body. Why did the royal family close the casket? Why did she decline a state funeral? Sons, particularly Prince Harry, remained in the dark regarding what truly transpired. It's simple to give up and begin to mourn, but there is something horrifying about the fact that everything had been concluded. Diana was hurled into the coffin quite rapidly. Hours, which was contrary to the French legislation mandating autopsies in cases of unexpected death. Her body was transported, leaving Paris before the sun had even risen. British officials who had risen did not look into it for years, and even then, primarily to verify the current narrative, but some unsettling details were never disclosed. Information that we will share with you all today. Initially, the man behind the wheel of Diana's vehicle, Henry Paul, served as the head of security at the he was described as Ritz on the third night, times beyond the permitted limit, although he colleagues and friends all vowed that he never drank so much alcohol. Minutes worth of CCTV footage prior to the collision, he is seen strolling in a straight line, speaking unambiguously, no stumbling, slurred speech. So where and why does his system's theol originate? Did the report on toxicology disappear for days prior to their publication? Some conspiracy theorists blame me for, according to 6 others, the royal family was the one responsible for the collision to save Diana from getting married to Dodi Fide, a Muslim. Would it truly be that drastic? The establishment goes to such lengths to safeguard this. Is where the crown image is located. Things start to get weird. Diana was afraid that she will be murdered. In letters that she wrote a few months prior to death, she explained a scheme to interfere with. She thought that with her car, she'd be eliminated in a fictitious mishap. She even foresaw that it would occur with a collision brought on by a brake failure. It's astounding how she may have known, and why wasn't she taken? Really, much more startlingly, those her butler received the letters. Paul Burrell, who concealed them until some people think he was afraid years later to let them go. Others believe he was under pressure. They weren't made public until a considerable time after the official declaration become well known. If you believe that's excessive, you won't be capable of managing an additional detail that's eerily unnerving. As we are all aware, Diana's coffin was still sealed due to standard procedure, although according to reports, her injuries were so disastrous to the extent that the public would have been traumatized. Following the Pontma Tunnel accident at August 31, 1997, at approximately 12:23 am, Diana was discovered alive yet dead. Her groaning was described by injured witnesses. Her back was squeezed in agony. Stuck seat due to the weight of the reportedly mangled her eyes in the car. As she floated, she fluttered open and closed, in and out of awareness as emergency personnel found it difficult to take. The ambulance that took her out arrived quite late, and it took more than an hour to release her from the debris instead of hurrying directly to the closest hospital. According to reports, the ambulance stopped several times as a result of Diana's unstable disease that caused a lot of. After being questioned, she suffered a heart attack, arrest in the course of travel, and she received immediate medical attention, including external massage for the heart. Diana reached the PTA Saletri at last. In the hospital around 2:06 am, physicians attempted for almost 2 hours in order to save her. Even following the entire surgery procedure, internal hemorrhage from a ruptured lung vein proved lethal, and she was declared dead. The physicians Verified around 4 o'clock a.m. if she did, in fact, come conscious, discussed with paramedics her internal yes, she had injuries, but her face was mostly intact. Thus the question now is, what was keeping her casket closed necessary? What insider information were they concealing? Assert that Diana remained alive for hours following the collision, and that delays in transporting her to a medical facility helped to others go even farther after her death and declare that she was brought to the hospital alive. However, there was an incident that was never supposed to be revealed. Did she pass away from the collision or another source? In total, we have all witnessed the funerals of public leaders unveil caskets in the state honors the country's grieving, but Diana, the world's most adored woman, at the sealed box and a quiet hour were provided. Burial as though her physical attributes had become a danger. Why didn't they want us to see? Watch the entire video to discover everything. Aside from it, do you ever question what was going on with her sons? That Harry was only 12 years old at the time, who was made to follow her coffin, an instance that would trouble him for decades, although he never knew the precise how she passed away. In reality, neither was William. Years would pass before either of them could begin posing thoughtful queries. But Harry found it when he performed what he did. Broke him. He would then explain the encounter of seeking the truth as he was crazy and didn't believe the media, didn't have faith in the organization, and most significantly, he didn't believe the account. And we shouldn't either, as the more it gets more bizarre the more you look. Commanded the person who signed the rapid embalming off on the repatriation right away. Why did the tunnel's CCTV cameras not record working the evening despite the fact that they were? Why didn't we stop the paparazzi from pursuing us? Obtain a single video. What was Diana's body was never captured on camera after passing away, even for the formal inquiry, and the reason did a large number of those present, observes physicians and hotel employees alike, either altered their narratives or vanished from the public view. Was Diana kept quiet as she posed a danger? Her passing was a shock to the monarchy. Was it an accident or a perfectly planned, carried out strategy? And most crucially, what may Harry have done years later? Lastly, respond to such inquiries. Observing, because to what Prince Harry discovered when he looked into his mother's last steps in the tunnel, things might be different. Everything we believed to be true, they desired to end the case, and they made it seem like a perfect case. But the more contradictions you find, the more you go. You discover that doctors are required under French law to do an autopsy prior to embalming, but Diana's body was discovered around morning, somehow already on a flight to London, avoiding the usual paperwork and signatures of independent witnesses who approved it. The official narrative is still in place. Ambiguous, but reports indicate that someone at a high prior to inquiries level wanted her home. May occur, which would clarify the close the casket as well, not only because to her wounds were terrible, but because it eliminated any possibility of pointing fingers at them. Now here's Prince Harry's big unveiling. Never trusted those in his immediate vicinity, so he went back to that exact spot 10 years ago. Later, at the age of 23, he asked something that nobody had anticipated. To be allegedly drove through at 65 miles per hour, the velocity of his mother's vehicle. He acknowledged that he desired closure, saying that he was shaken by an event in Paris. With pictures of his mother's last gasp remained, the tunnel was still fresh in his thoughts. Was only concrete. It wasn't that cruel, with pillars on either side, nothing noteworthy, and the fact that mommy was gone struck him the hardest. And no number of steps in reverse could erase that information, and now that he was aware of his mother could not possibly have killed as a result of traveling that fast in the tunnel, something within of him broke. As he drove into the tunnel, Harry shouted, rushing past Rivoli and the Ritz twice, where she ate one of her last meals, provided him no consolation. Instead, he was abandoned basic understanding that the narrative of the crash had been practiced for a long time before he was born, and he claimed that the tunnel didn't kill her, but he was too distraught to know what killed her during the medical. The explanation is harsh and clear-cut. Certain information in the public record raises Henry Paul, the driver, asked some chilling questions. Additionally, there were indications of elevated carbon. His blood's levels of monoxide were discovered that was first written off as his blood as a result of airbag fumes vanished for several days before reappearing. Our autopsy records concealed beneath layers of sealed archives and bureaucracy. Officials claim that the casket, it made sense to remain closed because if then, when it was open, everyone could see even with a 2 in tar in a pulmonary vein. Imperial coroner's lead-lined coffin. Historically, Sealing was the sole method to manage the story to maintain the world's perception treasured still working as Operation. The Pedet inquiry recognized that there were conspiracies that merit more investigation. Among the questionable items was Paul's blood, CCTV tapes that are missing, and the fact that nobody took pictures of Diana following the collision at the medical facility. In addition to the we ought to inquire as to whether even her pulmonary artery was visible to all. Consequently, couldn't you have just made her the corpse wears some clothing? Is simple since that wasn't taken into account when closing her casket. The official British 2008's investigation did not designate it all a conspiracy they thought of hearing about even in secret. My 66 paparazzi sabotage operational participation, and they made a decision, therefore everything was further justified. Analysis. The ultimate finding was that it was deemed an accident according to the weight of scientific data. Now that we have denied the formal assertion that she was struck in the heart, which is why they closed her casket. What's the truth? The explanation for why her casket was not opened. How many conspiracies are there? Did it have an impact on those closest to her? To discuss the conspiracy and rumors, physician Kenneth Matex, a specialist in trauma, claimed that a quicker rescue may have given her a remote chance. He that the wound was extremely uncommon and so harsh, it wouldn't have made a difference. Where public cynicism and medical facts clash, despite the harsh fact that it's sufficient to support a conspiracy by the conclusion of Diana's coffin was sealed at her funeral, shipped past by her boys, who were in mourning, and interred in secret. But Harry was aware when he walked, he sensed something else. That 2 years at the same distance, he noticed flaws in the story a while back, and those fractures shattered his faith in the organization he was born into. Following finding out the whole truth about his mother's passing, how the story he'd nourished all his life didn't make sense. Harry's survival was broken by something inside of him. Traveling through that same tunnel years later after being aware of the collision, he couldn't have been left by accident. He was devastated to see the deception and deceit. The palace is quiet, and it felt similar to betraying the very organization that was meant to keep his mother safe. Killed her, or worse, abandoned her, and with Meghan, they were now repeating the action. The fact that she was given the treatment of an way Diana plagued Harry, an outsider, that was the last straw for anger. Harry made a decision with clarity and sadness. No royal had the audacity to enter. Generations, he gave up and left. His military decorations, his residence, and his titles. Everything that's attached to the crown is in place of disobedience. But survival, he went with the truth over custom, love, and the legacy he left, not out of desire, but rather because he couldn't remain. But was this appropriate step due to his subsequent circumstances can cost him years of his life, and we all agreed with the stories that were told to us, yet Prince Harry was the one who declined to stay. He chose to remain silent and confront the terrible troops that attempted to find his mother and to keep the world from seeing the truth, being surrounded by constant photographers' pressure in every action and every exchange of words. Every second of privacy scrounged for. Harry saw it happen in the headlines. He himself, but Diana, would never stay. As early as 2019, he observed that he accepted the ineptitude of the monarchy on himself. To combat his, he sued the Mirror Group for the murder of his mother, claiming that they hacked phones dating back to 1996. A judge in court determined that hacking was common and consistent evidence that they continuously tapped Harry's voicemail. The Mirror acknowledged grave misconduct and compensated him for damages, including his legal fees, but he went farther and took on Murdoch's formidable forces in a court of law. Difficulty when news organizations published The Sun's publisher, and the controversy confronted him in the news of the world. Harry kept his ground in court after people had gathered in front of him in an attempt to quiet down, but Harry wouldn't go back down. He desired accountability rather than silence. Money. That choice would rock the January 2025 British media. NGN released maybe the most explosive apologies in history and unreserved acknowledgement of illegal violation of his and his deceased mother's private life, in addition to 8 figures damages that they had to cope with the worst of paparazzi culture. And in the end, Harry prevailed, and he did it by himself, and his triumph was significant. Sadly, by himself, he had observed his buried behind a mother beaten to death, a closed coffin. He now took back his dignity, but above all, he showed respect for Diana's legacy through press challenges. He didn't stop, but she couldn't. Early in 2024, he also filed a lawsuit against the Mirror Group, is the owner of Daily Mirror. newspapers over additional illegal interference. The court determined that they were at fault and granted him significant damages, but Harry wasn't just another famous person they spotted suing him as the monarch who had the audacity to reveal that he even gave a court testimony on the broken model himself, which is unprecedented for a Harry's first senior royal in more than a century. This has nothing to do with money, but rather with principle, which he referred to as his mission. Wished to once again overhaul the British media, and I'm the last individual who's known to can truly accomplish that, and his lawsuits have a cost to his family. Allegedly led to mayhem in the palace. Some believe that his quest for the perpetrators and his insistence on the facts about his mother will be re-examined. People uneasy, and they were considering Harry a danger, whilst the majority of the media observed Harry's struggle with the murderers under the limelight in court. He had to deal with something more sly, an organization that had sealed Diana's casket and quickly closed it off. Suing Harry for inquiries regarding her death compelled the same business to open its records in a symbolic sense and reveal their own shortcomings and treachery. Why didn't the royal family? Many people inquired. Lawsuit with him. Why did he go it alone? The reason is straightforward. He was unable to wait till he took over and broke custom and took the lead. Charles and William decided on silence, payouts, but Harry opted for publicity. He desired openness rather than secrecy. Everyone is now wondering what will occur when the final decision is rendered. Will the royal family ever be completely revealed? Its records will be the official British. When will the inquest into Diana's death be released? All of its mysteries, or have we arrived at a point at which the power of quiet is too great and Harry could be the price of remaining silent, and his family's lives, regrettably, pretty gloomy for the prince right now. Following Prince Harry's lawsuits opposing some of the most influential media, the reaction against UK corporations wasn't restricted to news reports and behind-the-scenes editorials. There was a discernible change in the atmosphere concerning the security of Harry and Meghan. He wasn't merely defending his privacy, but contesting a whole system. The lawsuits made claims ranging from illegally collecting data to call hacking and even legal bribing law enforcement officers. If these in-court accusations are made, that repercussions can cause the foundations to tremble of British media and provide in-depth ingrained corruption. But Harry will now must bear the consequences of speaking up based on intelligence reports that were leaked. British counter-terrorism officials had intercepted conversations between extremist far-right organizations publicly imagining acts of violence against the. A few terrifying reports mentioned that Harry for getting married to a mixed-race American woman, and he was betraying the monarchy. Labeled in fringe circles as a race traitor, these weren't merely internet-based. Some of these people were trolls. Links to domestic terrorist conspiracy schemes that had already prevented, but it didn't stop there. During Harry's time in Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda openly declared him to be a prestigious target because of his royal rank and military service. That threat remained, but they are now court documents from 2025 in a case shown that his name was still displayed on radical watch lists of past royal. According to the testimony of protection officers, Harry, the threat level of post-Megit was higher than most senior royals since he didn't official defense, and his growing visible whistleblower profile against the monarchy and the press. The US did not spare even Meghan. Threats were intercepted. According to authorities, the threats against her life were sufficiently reliable that private security, the couple's employment firms, tripled employees at Harry's court in London. Looks, but it's not the worst of one of the most concerning dangers arrived from Al-Qaeda following Harry's retreat from royal duties in the United Kingdom in 2020. His automatic security was reduced by the office. Coverage during the court case in 2025, it was made public that Al-Qaeda had specifically demanded his, claiming that assassinating him would appeal to their neighborhood. Harry is now contesting the decreased defense, claiming that this downgrade put his life in grave danger. Not even right now. His son is safe in the UK. Counterterrorism officials cautioned that neo-Nazi and far-right extremists have attacked him, as well as his son Archie. According to a senior UK police officer, Meghan, their actual goals were Harry, and experts and former royal butlers have discussed the extreme danger on numerous occasions they confront today by referencing the past schemes for assassinations, such as those against. What are everyone's thoughts on Prince Charles? As you know, will history repeat itself? From Diana's correspondence with her, Paul Burrell, her butler, was just months before she died. She asserted that someone was arranging a collision with her vehicle to make Charles has a clear route to marriage. Did Tiggy notice something, or was she just paranoid? Did Diana sense that something darker was on the horizon? She was growing too strong and powerful. Lastly, given that Harry has turned into too smart and strong, will he follow after his mother's footsteps?